Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you all. Thank you for tuning in. This is the MRC BF1 series presented by Sim Broadcast. This is the first event of 5 rounds here at Westhill International today. My name is Travis Mehlinger. Joining me today is a good friend of mine, Adam Brown. Adam, good morning, good afternoon to you.
Good morning, good afternoon to you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
I agree. This will be a lot of fun. This is a very quick car. We have a number of very talented drivers here running in this series in what is the most challenging car in Live for Speed, a proper Formula One car. Adam can tell us a little bit more about it.
I mean, you could argue that the F08's a bit more challenging, seeing as this car's got traction control, but it definitely is quite a challenge to be fast in this thing. Yeah, it's one of the four, I believe, real-life cars in Live for Speed. It's yeah, it was used in the 2006 F1 World Championship, BMW Sauber. It has, well, 2.4 litre V8 engine. It's got 720 horsepower in a car that weighs 530 kilograms. You can see why it needs traction control. That's a lot of power for such a little car. And yeah, wasn't the most successful car. You know, Nick Heidfeld only came 9th place in the World Championship with a total of 23 points. But they did score 2 podiums, and they did come 5th in the Constructors. So it wasn't the worst car on the grid. But yeah, it's quite cool that we have a real F1 car in Live for Speed.
It is cool. I personally was never very good at driving it. It is more challenging. I would argue it's more challenging than the F08 if you turn off traction control. But I don't know that features very commonly when the BF1 does come out and Live for Speed.
And yeah, well, I'm not sure who would be turning off traction control. It's a death wish, you know.
It is. I did it for a bit of occasional fun every now and then. But we digress. Again, thank you for tuning in here at Sim Broadcasts. I introduced myself as Travis Mehlinger. This is Adam Brown. You may not recognize our voices. You may have heard me a few times in calls on other races, and you've heard Adam doing color commentary on other races. But we are the two that will be bringing you this entire series, the 5 rounds, beginning today here at Westhill International. Adam, should we talk about what's coming up, the calendar for this event?
Yeah, it's an interesting calendar. It looks like it's going to be really fun. Yeah, 5 races, quite spaced out over the next couple months. We're starting off with the Grand Prix of West England here at Westhill International. Yeah, we got 53 laps today. The distance of all the races is going to be about 300 kilometers, give or take. Yeah, we'll talk you through the calendar.
Yeah, so this is, as Adam said, first round here, Grand Prix of West England at Westhill International. Coming up on December 13th, we will have the Grand Prix of Japan at KY3. That's Kyoto International. Following that, we'll have the Grand Prix of Jamaica at Fern Bay Black, FE4, on the 27th of December. The second Grand Prix of Japan, KY2, that's Kyoto National, on the 10th of January. And then the final round, the 5th round of the MRC BF1 League, will be the Grand Prix of England at AS5. That'll be on Sunday, January 24th of next year.
Yeah, it's well, not as varied a calendar as we see in some series, but in these cars you can only choose so many of the tracks because it's so fast, and a lot of the tracks in Live for Speed are quite compact.
They are, and we, as we were preparing for this event, we dug up some interesting statistics about these courses and about some real Formula One circuits. These events, as Adam said, will be a proper Grand Prix distance, 300 to 310 kilometers. But notably, the events will only take about 75 minutes because these tracks are so ludicrously fast. Fern Bay Black is... Notably, Fern Bay Black is the slowest track on the calendar, but otherwise, all of the tracks on the calendar, both the Kyotos, Westhill, and Aston, roughly as quick as Monza in terms of time over race distance. So these guys will be going very, very quick around tracks that are, even for Formula One cars, are ludicrously quick. So this will be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of flat out racing, a lot to watch out for in the next coming months. And yeah, along with this BF1 league, next month, I believe the 13th of December, we've got MRC are holding another event. The MRC E Challenge. You know, we're taking the FOX to a custom made layout by MRC. It's going to be quite interesting because we've never really seen any Formula E imitations in Live for Speed. I believe this will be the first event we've seen. We're taking around the New York E-Prix track. Sign-ups are going to be open in the link on the screen on the LFS forum. Yeah, 12th of December, it's going to be a very interesting event. That limited fuel is going to be great fun.
I agree. I think it's an interesting concept. I agree. I don't know that I have done an event like that in Live for Speed before, so this will be fun to watch.
We have a couple minutes to go till quali. Drivers just getting in their final couple laps of practice. This is going to be interesting quali format we've got here. They're going out in 2 groups, and they're all going to complete their laps like that. As we see, Group 1 is coming on screen now. Got an interesting driver list.
Yes, qualifying is coming up. As Adam said, cars going out in 2 groups. They'll go out for 10-minute sessions. The Q1 group will be Strauka Topolyak from the Fragmaster team, Yari Katila of World Class Lines, Victor Veloso of Energy Virtual Racing, Rick Cardall, a familiar name if you're watching some broadcasts, of Team Citus, Jonas Niemanen and Sami Lipmanen, Finnish drivers, Ben Dover of Born to Race, Robertus Nagavicius, Global Gaming Racing, Pauli Peltagongas of Team Citus, Emrikan Sivri of Master Race Car, the host of this series, Alexei Lamerto from Team Citus, Leo Fontana, Przemysław Fabian, Gabor Gura of Team Citus, David Godge of Team Rock Racing, another familiar name if you watch sim broadcasts, Ayub Elanouni, another familiar name, Malcolm Del Barri of Gum Garage, Yefan Jakob from Race Green Autosports, Bajidar Velinov, World Class Lions teammate, and Cristobal Gonzalez from the Born to Race team. That's Group 1 coming up in just a moment.
Yeah, quite an interesting lineup. We've got a lot of familiar faces, but a few that I haven't heard in that list. Maybe it's just because I'm not used to their real driver names.
Same. I am also familiar with LFS usernames and being involved in some of the other SBTV broadcasts. Some of these names have become more familiar over time, but a lot of new names here. And it'll be interesting to see if a lot of these new names have been lurking, practicing with the BF1 to show us some immense talent and speed today, or if perhaps we've got some newcomers who are just really interested in driving the BF1. Either way, this will be an exciting event, fun to watch, in a very, very quick car.
We have some times on the board at the start of quali. We're just going to the track now. Yeah. Already a great lap from Altsu on the board. He's a second faster than everyone else, which is, in these F1 cars, is especially crazy. Because we're used to seeing those gaps in F1, but that's because in real life, you know, there's a variation in the car's performance. But well, Altsu here, it's quite a massive gap.
There is quite a massive gap. And if I recall correctly from practice earlier, Lamberto had gone even quicker, low 24, so he may still have some time in it. Other cars going around. Emmercon obviously has the pace up, but a second off the first position right now. Following Kaplonik around the track, and he is also pretty quick, but still pretty far off the ultimate pace of Lamberto.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a hard one to beat because we've been watching him throughout practice and it's pretty crazy. And also, you know, he's just a pro in the Formula cars. If you've ever taken part in FOX Friday, he's always competing for the wins. You didn't know who Topiniak is. It's well, it is Fragmaster's very own number, who is, yeah, also a regular in these Formula cars here on Live for Speed. But it's not, oh, he's just spun there as he returns to pits. That's one thing that we have in Live for Speed that you wouldn't see in Formula 1. These drivers have a telepit option, which is very useful when they've spun round and need to jump out of the way.
It's also a notable difference from other racing simulators that some of our viewers may be familiar with, where you can quickly and easily get out of the way without having to stop the car.
Yeah, on iRacing, you still can telepit, but you've still got to stop the car fully, you know. And Gabor Gier is going out on his outlap. He's the only person so far to even get close to one of Lamberto's lap times. Be interesting to see if he can improve that time.
Yeah, he's not too far off. What, 2.5 tenths back? He's coming through the chicane now and on to the short straight down to the last corner. We'll follow him around and see what this lap looks like.
Yeah, he's a complete regular for these streams. You know, I'd be surprised if he's missed any of the last few races we've streamed on sim broadcasts. And as we just go on board with this car here, he's entering into turn 1. This should be flat out, I believe. It is indeed. 300 kilometers an hour through the first corner. That's crazy. Shifts down into 5th for the second turn. It's keeping up the full power though. It's crazy how you can go flat out through turn 3. That's mental. You know, this car's downforce really gluing at the track. Turn 4 again, really fast. This chicane here in 5, 6 and 7, as you can see, he's missed the apex a bit there. That won't do him any good on this lap time. But yeah, that's one of the trickiest corners on the track. If you don't nail that, you're losing all this time down the back straight. Turn 8, another tricky one. It's off camber apex. It really washes you wide, as you can see with Gabor there. Turn 10 here has quite a massive curve on the inside as Gabor runs wide. This chicane fairly easy. It's insane that he's put a wheel on the grass, and that's the end of his lap.
Yeah, shame he had to abort there because it looked like it was going to be a pretty good lap. Session coming in to an end in just a few moments. We're looking down the order. Don't see anyone improving other than Lamberto, who went a little bit quicker, is now a full 6 tenths up on Gabor Gier, with Emmercon another half second behind them. So Lamberto setting the tone and the ultimate pace with Gabor Gier and Emmercon behind him. And 10 more cars filling out the order down to a full 3 seconds back off the leader. So pretty big gaps in times,
yeah.
Adam.
There's quite a few big gaps there. I'm quite surprised, if I'm honest. I mean, in a car this fast, you would have thought times would be a bit closer. You know, you've got a 1 minute 20 lap It's not like some of the other laps we've got on the for speed where it could go on for 3 minutes. You know, a 3-second gap there isn't that much, but around here, 3 seconds is quite a massive difference. You know, we could see the slower drivers being lapped quite a few times here.
We could. Adam, tell me a little bit about this. I am not a good one-lap driver. I'm reasonably consistent when I'm driving over a long-run pace. You, for those who don't know, do a bit of driving yourself, and you're also a notably fast qualifier. Is it easy to give it away under that kind of pressure? How do you set a fast lap when you really need to and you don't have much time?
Setting a fast lap is you know, you can, for most of the time I can deal with the pressure. It's more not pushing 100% and just making sure you hit every apex and, you know, get the throttle on and just focus on your inputs instead of the lap. That's what these drivers will be wanting to do. As soon as they start thinking of the bigger picture, they're going to lose their concentration, and the faster drivers are always the ones that have their mind focused entirely on what's going on inside that cockpit.
Of course, that makes sense. As we're talking about it, Guerrero is on another lap. He was pretty quick through the first half of the circuit, now down to the chicane. We'll see if he can make a stick this time. Does get down to the apex, over the second apex, now to the third apex of the chicane. Much cleaner this time. Gets a reasonably good exit to go down the back straight here. Now into the braking zone, hard onto the brakes, wide onto the curb onto the right. Takes a lot of curb on the left and just misses the post. That looked like it was awfully quick.
And he's been reset to the pit lane. So yeah, there is, as we discussed earlier, there are 2 groups in this. Quite an interesting quali format, as we can see. Wasn't expecting him to be suddenly jumped to the pit lane, but
nor was I. But second group is coming out. In this group, we have Jim Dalda, the Turkish driver, Alexander Gonzalez of Master Race Car, Lucas Wilson from Gum Garage, Seamus Takavicius from Global Gaming Racing, my apologies, Lucas Finko, Kevin G of Master Race Car, the presenters of this event, Akshay, Dario Suda, Pedro Picanco, Darius Brzezinskas of Team Rock Racing, another familiar name, Stefan Leazer of the Master Race Car team, Christian Sanoshki of GD Team, Benoit Lamarie of Gum Garage, Jeremias Zanella from Argentina Turismo, Dusan Maric, again of Master Race Car. A lot of representation from the hosts in this event. Wojciech Mucha, Sean Lee, Rony Krampush from Race Green Autosports, and car number 99, and the last driver we will present, Joshua D'Souza.
Yeah, again, some familiar names on there, but also some unknowns. Interesting to see Sean Lee on that list. He's a mouse driver, so instead of using a wheel, he steers the car with a mouse. I believe he uses pedals though. So if this car wasn't already hard enough to drive, he's got to drive it with a mouse.
Yeah, that's hard to do. I will call out an old friend of mine from the early days. Well, the early days for me of Live for Speed. My friend Randy from Something Awful Racing drove around with a mouse way back in the day, and he was pretty good at it.
Yeah, at TCR we had a gamepad driver. We also had a mouse driver. And yeah, well, the TCR driver also drove for Something Awful. It's a bit of a...
That's Spencer, if you're out there watching. Yeah. We hope you're enjoying it.
Pick
We'd like to have you back.
D.
Yep, that's him. Now he knows we want him to be here. Anyway, cars coming around for on their warm-up laps. Sudaj gets it wrong out of the chicane, but I don't think he managed to keep it out of the fence, so he should be able to come around and start setting a lap time. A couple cars coming out of the pits as well.
I believe Cem Dalda is the first driver on... He's the second driver on his flying lap. Again, flat out into turn 1. Scrubs off quite a bit more speed than we saw Gabor scrub off as he runs into the grass, but he keeps it on track. That's... With this car, with the traction control, it is somewhat easy to keep it on the grass as long as you don't make any crazy throttle movements. Not quite as smooth as we've seen Gabor through here, but he's keeping the speed up.
Looks to me like he's struggling a little bit. His inputs are awfully big, and you can hear the front tire scrubbing, so maybe the car's not quite where he wants it.
Yeah, I mean, he might have quite an understeery setup on there, not as much front bite as he would have wanted. As he locks up quite a bit into turn 8. This is a bit of a scruffy lap. Hopefully we'll see him improve later on into the session. This final corner is another, I mean, it's one of my favourite corners on the track, really. It's, you know, in this car with the traction control you can get the throttle on quite early, but in other cars you've really got to feather it round. It's great fun if you get it perfect. And he slots himself into P13. 3 seconds exactly off the current pole time, which is interesting. We've had Pedro Picanco splitting the 2 Sidus drivers in P2. He's only a few thousandths off the pole time as we see him coming round into turn 10, 9 and 10 to prepare for a second lap.
Good lap from him to get close to the top because it's appearing to be pretty exclusive. While he was just after he came through, Sean Lee came across and set a pretty good lap in the 25s, one of 7 drivers down in the 25s. He'll come across, he'll come out of the pits again pretty soon to try to set another lap. Did Picanco go around, Adam? I didn't look to see if he was coming around for another lap.
Picanco is just coming onto the back straight now. One thing to talk about with his car is he's got quite a beautiful skin on there. He's got the normal tan, not tan, Road Appraiser skin on there, but he's got quite a nice background. It's this nice circuit going on there. He's had a pretty faultless sector 1 so far. Quite a nice time there. We see him go through turn 4, scrubbing as little speed as possible off. Another beautiful turn there.
He did something interesting to that corner that I've not seen other drivers do, where he actually dabbed the brake and dropped a gear rather than trying to just lean it in with the throttle.
Even weirder, through turn 5 we saw him with quite a massive slide. In some cars in Live for Speed, sliding gives you quite a big advantage if you can get it right. And I don't see why that wouldn't be the same with the BF1. This is such a clean lap so far. Quite a commentator's curse there. Perfect timing.
Well done, Adam. You got him.
That was going to be such a perfect lap, and I just had to say it and span it. So yeah, half an hour into the stream and I've already killed someone.
Are you proud, Adam?
I wouldn't say I'm proud, but I'm not ashamed.
I guess we could be thankful you did it during qualifying and not in the race. Car 77, Shinoshki's coming around on a fast lap. Sean Lee gets out of the way to let him through. We'll follow him around the back of the course, through the final corner and across the line.
He had quite a nice middle sector there. Entry onto the home straight wasn't perfect, but he slots himself into 3rd in front of Gabor Gior again.
That's a pretty good time. Few drivers in this group challenging the top of the order. Sanoshki notable because he slotted into 3rd place, and then Sean Lee there in 7th.
Yep, Sean Lee on a lap at the moment. Yeah, as I was saying, being a mouse driver in such a fast car is quite challenging. Just going into turn 5 now. Let's see if we can nail this. See, that's an interesting line there that some of the faster drivers don't take. He's used a lot of the curb there. Tighter line. Exit won't be as good, and as we see, his split time, he's lost a few tenths there. Which is interesting to see. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us here. Got some familiar faces in the chat at the moment. Great to see.
Adam nearly strikes again. Took a break to congratulate and thank everyone for joining us here, just as Sean Lee put a wheel over the curb. So Adam talks and the curb collects drivers. Fortunately, Sean Lee was able to gather it up and set a reasonably good time, but not quite enough to improve. Stays in 7th place.
Well,
following along with Brzezinski now, he's already come through the first few corners of the track and is turning into turn 3 right now. Flat, did not take his foot off the throttle. Now into turn 4, dabs the brakes. Chose not to go down a gear, like we were talking about just a minute ago. Now on the brakes, into the chicane, gets it slowed down, takes an awful lot of curb on the left, too much curb on the left, goes in the grass, and then gets it wrong over the curb through the right-hander and
bailed
towards
out
the
on
lap.
the lap. Don't blame him there. Got a bit too happy on the rear. As we see Muru on a lap. Quite a nice sector 1, but sector 2 is not perfect. I'm doubting he's going to be challenging anyone in front of him that sector time.
Yeah, he got it a bit wrong in the chicanes with the somewhat ragged lap of Brzezinski ahead of him and had to back out of it.
I think the important thing about him is he looks fairly clean, you know, he's not pushing too hard. He could be a contender in the race with this consistency. He's some of you may know him as Kamikaze. He's also a regular in the FOX Fridays. Got a lot of regular Formula drivers, as you would expect. And yeah, I was wrong. He did improve. He beat his beat Sean Lee, beat WCL's Boz.
We're on board now with Dario Sudec coming around the final corner, tight down to the curb. Not quite as wide out to the edge of the track, Adam. I don't know that it makes that much difference there, but does he lose a lot of speed going down the front stretch by not letting the car run out wide out of the last corner?
I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, in this car, maybe, but in a lot of cars you can hold it tight around there and it isn't a big deal. As he's spun round.
Yeah, it's just a little bit too quick through that corner. He kept the throttle down and the downforce wasn't quite enough.
See, I was just about to mention how interesting his skin is. He's got some nice geometric shapes on his on the front of his car there. Shame we couldn't get a closer look at it.
Following Brzezinski again, he set a pretty good, a respectable first sector time, and is pretty tidy through the chicane. Not the quickest. Didn't take the curb through turn 5, but used it through 6 and 7. A little scruffy on the exit, but he's between the lines. 46.89 second split time, though, is not going to get him any closer to the top, but still a pretty clean lap from him. He gets it slowed down for the right-hander. Coming up to the chicane, the car on the right, Akshay, dutifully out of the way. Nice and tidy through the chicane. A little bit of oversteer on the way out, but manages to keep it off the curb and out of the grass. Now approaching the final corner. Hard on the brakes just after the 100 board. Brings it over to the left. Oh, unfortunately gets a bit of oversteer and nearly drives it between the barriers there.
And yeah, he won't have enough time to do another lap.
No, he will not.
Quite interesting the way he was setting up that car. You know, it's quite rare to see someone trying to slide the car so much.
It is. Snovsky now coming through turns 3 and 4 and approaching the chicane turn 5. Notably carrying the number 77, hopefully for his sake. He doesn't do a Valtteri Bottas today and drive around in second place. I'm sure he wants to do well. Comes way wide on the curb, uses all of it coming out of turn 7. Gets a really good exit. Coming down to the slow corner, the slow left-hander at turn 8. Adam, he's looking pretty tidy.
This is a tidy lap. He's hitting every apex, nailing every exit. I can't fault him so far. This is one of the corners we see drivers go off, and he has spun it. That was going to be a brilliant lap, and I've managed to curse him again. Although was that Travis that time? I'm not sure.
I handed it to you. I think that was your kill, not mine. No, he was looking so tidy through there and just put a wheel over the curb.
You gave me.
That's too bad, because that was a great lap. I'll claim an assist.
As I think one of the last drivers to cross the line, Maric, is heading onto the back straight under the bridge now. See a split time.
Sean Lee also coming around as well to the final corner. We'll see how he does when he crosses the line. Sean Lee pretty far off pole position, but crossing the line. Does not improve, stays in 9th place. And Adam, Dusan Maric looks like last one to come around into the final corner now.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I thought it was the last one going around, but his qualifying might be over because I don't see a split time on his time there. We'll see. Yeah, that was it. Time qualifying is over. Got an interesting list there. 26 cars. Almost 10 seconds spanning the whole grid. I think it's about 8 seconds from our pole sitter to our last place driver. Quite rare to see that in a league like this, but I'm sure a lot of the drivers will just be getting used to the car.
Yeah, in the middle of the order, the times are pretty tight. Obviously, a few drivers at the front, substantially quicker than everyone else. Lemerto, Pikanko, Sinachki in the 24s. But then, you're down to 18th place. Cars within a second and a half of each other. Gira in 4th place, closer to the leaders with a 25.16, and then in 5th place, a 25.6, and then down to 19th, 20th in the 27s. So I think we should have a good, pretty competitive race in the middle of the pack if everybody manages to keep it neat and tidy and stay out of trouble. The guys at the front will drive away, and then we'll see what happens at the back. Adam, you may be right. It may be some guys who are otherwise pretty handy drivers, but just getting accustomed to the BF1 for this event.
I think there's a few drivers that I would expect to be further up that list. Ronnie Korumpus in 12th place is normally quite fast in these light, high-powered Formula cars. He runs an F08 league, and he's always fast. I wouldn't say he's slow, but he is 2 seconds off the pole time, you know. But he is indeed, yeah, a bit off pace. But yeah,
right. I guess now that the qualifying is concluded, we can run down the order. Notably, at the bottom of the order, we'll make a note of this now. We've got 2 drivers outside 107%. I do not have the rules handy. We'll wait for a call on whether they're permitted to start according to steward's discretion or if they're going to be excluded. But at the top of the order, on pole position, we will have Lemerto starting on pole with a 124.56, very quick lift. And then second, Pikanko, Sinachki third, Gura in 4th, Emre Khan in 5th, Tepanyak in 6th, Muru 7th. 8th, we've got Mucha 9th, Sean Lee Velinov in 10th, Yevnyakov in 11th, Rona Kronpush starting 12th, Davigaj in 13th, Yari Katila starting 14th, Brzezinskis 15th, 16th, Dusan Sudac. At 17th, we've got Jem Dalda, 18th, Pabian, 19th, Tautkus, 20. We've got Neiman in 21st, Golfiri, Nagavicius in 22nd, Finko in 23rd, Dusan Maric in 24th, and then 25th and 26th, the cars that may or may not start at steward's discretion outside 107%. Akshay, 25th, with a 131.07, and at 26th, we've got number 44, not Lewis Hamilton, Wilson on a 32.66.
Yeah, interesting to note that we've got a Valtteri Bottas impersonator and we've got a Lewis Hamilton impersonator. I think one's closer to their real life counterpart than the other, though.
I think you're right. Notably, a bit of Live for Speed trivia. the number 77 is not unfamiliar with Live for Speed. Valtteri Bottas was a Live for Speed driver far back in the day. At one time, he had a number of world records. He drove around his Vale. Valtteri, if you're out there, we would love to see you someday.
Yeah,
Come
drove
back.
for Speedo. Quite a famous team in Live for Speed. Quite a few drivers from that team that have gone on to do other things in sim racing and in real life.
Indeed. While we're waiting to get the race organized here after qualifying is closed, we will once again remind you about the MRC E Challenge. It's a one-time event coming up on December 12th. It's an interesting event. We're simulating a Formula E Prix using the FOX with a limited fuel load. It'll be on a custom layout created by the MRC team, Michael from the MRC team, based on the New York E Prix track. Again, December 12th. Tune in for that here on Sim Broadcasts, and we will have a trailer coming up for that, I believe.
One. Welcome back. Interesting trailer, looking forward to that. One thing to note about qualifying is instead of a 107% rule, according to the rules I've got up on screen here, is that it's a 115% rule. So all the drivers that have set a time should be okay according to my calculations.
Okay,
Get
cool.
confirmation of that.
That's my mistake on 107%. Thanks, Adam.
So yeah, couple minutes left to the race start. Drivers will need to do a pit stop here. I believe they'll have to change compounds. Start with the tire of choice. Unlike Formula 1, they don't have to start on the tire they're qualified on. They have choose any compound, and I think they need to make at least one compound change during the race. We'll see a big variation in strategies here. We've got safety cars, we've got different fuel loads, we've got, as I said, different tire choice. It'll be interesting to see what goes on during the race.
Adam, I never drove much BF1 competitively. I only did a couple events a long time ago. What is tire strategy like in the BF1, especially on a circuit like this one that is so fast, that relies so much on downforce and so much on grip from the downforce? Do they need to use a harder compound? Can they get away with an R3, or do they need to go to an R4? What do you expect they'll do?
R4s in any car is always a bit of a kind of last minute safety type thing, you know. I wouldn't be wanting to choose R4 if I didn't have to. As we're just going here to the formation lap, roll up lap. Yeah, it's not the real start, obviously.
Yeah, so you were saying about the tires as they were coming to the grid for the formation lap. You said R4s, perhaps not so good.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make them work, fair enough. But I wouldn't want to pick them if I had the choice. I would say, if drivers can make them last, yeah, maybe one or two stops. But we could be seeing drivers making 3 stops here. You know, it's quite crazy, especially if we have you know, time under the safety car where people can make shorter stops, you know, they lose less time. And yeah, one thing to note is there's only a single car on R4, so it's Akshay down in I believe 24th position. There's a bit of ramming going on there. Interesting. People are not given as much space as they maybe should be giving. Interesting to note, we've got a couple cars that haven't qualified, taking up the rear of the grid, including, well, we normally see him in this position, Loco, the number 80 of Sanella there at the back. See, he's normally quite a fast driver, so we might see him making his way through the grid.
Yeah, that's another thing I wonder about is these drivers who we see in other events going quite a bit quicker than maybe the starting grid reflects here. I wonder how quickly or easily they'll be able to come up through the order.
Yeah, it's quite grid's quite laid out a lot, you know. We've got Lamberto going into the final corner now, and the car at the back of the field just leaving turn 9. So there's a big gap. Lamberto's going to be waiting a long time at the front, which is why he's really burning those tires out on the grid, just to make sure they don't cool down while he's waiting. Which is quite weird because, you know, in F1 you expect these guys to be backing up all the way around the final couple corners, just so they're not waiting. But he's gone quite quickly through the whole field.
He has, but it looks like they're bunching up behind him pretty well now. It looked like he managed to get it slowed down, but he did. You're right. He lit up the rear tires a lot to try to get some heat in them. Notably, it didn't look like he worked the front tires very hard, but obviously there's a bigger risk there of turning the car around and pointing it the wrong direction when you do that. Fernando Alonso is very talented at warming tires like that, but it's perhaps more difficult for these guys.
Well, yeah, Fernando Alonso, of course, the world champion in the year that this car was competing.
You are right. All right, the last couple cars just now coming to the back of the grid. We are formed up. We've got the start notification for the lights. Green lights are on. Waiting for the red lights to come up.
Quite a wait.
There's 3 red lights up and green. Lamberto comes off the start, manages to keep first position. Picanco forms up behind him. Sanashki behind him. Emre Khan coming around on the outside. So far, so good. We've got a few cars going too wide through the first corner. Some cars turn around backwards and off in the sand for the back.
In the background, these are Velinov and Muru. Muru with a lot of damage on the front there. He'll have to watch out.
Velinov also a lot of damage, but they were both able to get out of the sand. Looking toward the front again, Lamberto leads.
It looks like we've had status quo in the top 3 drivers. You know, keeping the order there.
Yep. Looking back, everybody coming cleanly through the chicane. Running single file down the backstretch. We've got a couple cars going pretty slowly through the chicane, but it looks like they've gathered it up. We've got most of a lap done and no terrible carnage.
We've got a car round on the back straight. That's Cem Dalda. Back up to speed. Don't think he's got quite a lot of damage on that right rear. He might have to pit for that.
He does. He's got tire scrubbing while he's on the brakes. It looks like he's got Akshay behind him. We'll look to the front again. We've got Toponiak coming out of the final corner, dumping for the pits already. Don't know. I don't believe he got any contact around the first lap. I assume he's just coming in for his first stop to get it out of the way early.
Velinov is not having a fun time getting it back to the pits. A lot of damage on that left rear. Interesting how they haven't called a safety car or even a virtual safety car with all these cars round with damage. You know, we've got Muru on the back straight crabbing along, and he's going 70 kilometers an hour, whereas cars will be coming past him at 300. This is quite dangerous. I don't see.
It really is. Lamberto coming out of the chicane right now, just over the curb in turn 7. He will catch Muru before. There we go. There it is. Oh, We got a few bumps in the among the leaders. Lamberto very quickly got on the brakes and slowed down when the virtual safety car came out, and I think there was some contact behind him. I heard the bumps, but I was unable to see it. Picanco went by him, not expecting Lamberto to slow down. He was in the draft setting up a pass, but it looks like, looking back through the cars, seems like everyone's going to come through this unscathed.
It looks like people are a bit unsure of the speed limit. I believe it's 140 kilometers an hour. Yeah, as the drivers make their way past Muru.
Muru getting instructions to carefully drive back to pit lane. I don't know that he can go any faster than carefully. It looks like he's doing his best to get the car back. So after an exciting first 2 laps with relatively little damage and now a virtual safety car, we can look down the order. We've got Lamberto running first from pole position. Picanco behind him, then Sinoski, Ember Khan behind him, Gura, Lee.
Yeah, Topignac will be quite annoyed that that wasn't a full safety car, because after making his pit stop, he'll have lost quite a bit of time.
He will.
As it was before the virtual safety car was called out. Yeah.
Sean Lee may get a telling off from the officials here. We'll see. He's trying to warm his tires, but he's doing it rather aggressively and right on Gura's tail. Now I realize as the race goes green again that he's doing that to try to get a jump and make a pass. A lot of cars running very close together here. Lamberto got a jump and has a bit of a gap to the cars behind him, but now cars running side by side. Picanco and then Gura,
as
Emre Khan, Lee
see
coming down the chicane.
Sean Lee making a move around the outside of Emre Khan into turn 5. Oh, bit of contact, but that was a pretty good move by Sean there. Made up a place.
Yeah, up ahead of them. Up ahead of them, Shinachki was able to take P2 from P3 and got a very good run out of the corner. Takes a lot of curve and is right on Lamberto's tail, coming around to the slowest part of the circuit.
Gabor with an issue into turn 9. This is let Sean Lee get close, and he's making a move into the chicane. What a
Sinoski
move.
has gone off. He's lost Lamberto, and Picanco goes through back into P2, slows the car down a little bit wide out of the corner, just ahead of Sinoski, slows them both down. Unfortunately, Lee is too far back to capitalize on that.
Yeah, Lee, quite a clever restart there. He was, I believe he's the only one to set his first gear to the speed limit of the virtual safety car, so he gained up quite a lot of space there and managed to really capitalize on the restart. As we've got a car on the inside letting people through.
We've got cars in the pits too. We've got Ronnie Kronpush came into the pits a few moments ago, and behind him Bukovicius coming into the pits, so a number of drivers taking their early pit stops. Zanella in the notes as well. Taukas just now leaving his pit box.
Samnechki round in P3. Oh no. And he's taken it out another car. Oh my god. This is quite messy there. I'm not even sure if that was his fault. It was just him hitting the barrier and coming back onto the track. But that's him down from P3 into, I think it'll be P11 by the end of this straight. No, it keeps P10. Fortunately, it doesn't look like there's much suspension damage on this car. It's just a tiny bit of front wing damage, but that may be cosmetic.
Yeah, it looks like an awful lot of front wing damage. He may be losing some downforce there. Fortunately, Velinov, fortunately for Sinowski that is, Velinov goes off, not able to slow the car down and had to go to the runoff area. And now Sinowski has gouged behind him, trying to set him up on the front straight.
Lamberto's fastest lap, well, Gabor's just beating it, but that was a whole 2 seconds faster than second place driver Pedro Picanco's lap that time around. Interesting to see. Looks like Picanco may have set his car up for qualifying and quite a bit slower in the race. Maybe he's just preserving his tyres. That's let Gabor and Sean catch up to the rear into T5.
Sean Lee was all over him coming through the first few corners, but gives the position up to Gabor Gura. Oh, and he
Pedro
spins right in
Pacanca's
front of him.
round again. Circuit claiming many fast victims here. This will be... Everyone will be hoping for a safety car by the end of this.
That caused Gabor Gura to check up and nearly gave Sean Lee a run on him down to that corner. Sean Lee thought better of it because he wasn't able to get fully alongside.
So yeah, the sidest 1-2, that is, you know, after qualifying, that's quite surprising, but it's pretty good. It looks like the winner of this race is going to be the one that keeps out of the trouble the most.
Looking back at Dusan Maric, he has quite a bit of damage at the rear of the car. We didn't see how he went around, but he's got Akshay, one of the slower back markers, coming up on him. Is unable to make the pass, so Maric, though the car is badly damaged, is still able to go around.
rounds, Najavicius, and Pedro Pacanco round in front of him. I wonder if there was an issue there, a bit of a collision. Because, yeah, it looks like they've both been off. Pedro Pacanco's tyres are as hot as the surface of the sun. He's span around again. This is disaster for him. I believe he may have forgotten to put his race setup on, and he's working with a quali setup there. It's going to be very interesting to see if he can salvage anything from this race. So yeah, Gabor's had an issue as well because he's back down to P4. This is a hectic race. Loads of cars in the pits. We've got Najavicius, Rozinskas, and Pedro Pacanco. Pedro will be changing his compound there and making a lot of setup changes, I believe.
Yep. Notably, at front, very little has changed. Lee has lost a little bit to the leader. I unfairly called Akshay a backmarker a few moments ago. He's actually worked his way up, closing in on a top 10 after starting near the back with all of the pit stops happening ahead of him. So a steady race from him. My apologies for calling him a backmarker. He's putting in a pretty handy job.
So Pedro lost a lap in his pit stop, got a stop go, and he's retired. So one of the people.
Sorry, Adam. There's a car off in the chicane with a whole bunch of cars coming through. Niemanen manages to get out of the way.
Gabor again. His rear tires are through the roof. I'm wondering if maybe he's spun or if he's another one that's messed up his stuff.
Yeah, he's usually losing a lot of grip at the front end of the car, Adam. The front wing is broken. It looks like it's dragging the ground, so the front tires aren't getting full grip. He's probably not getting all the downforce. Yeah, probably see him in the pits for that. A terrible split time, even by race pace standards. He'll have to come in. A car off ahead of him, Wilson, in the sand, right ahead of Gabor Gura coming out of that corner. Might be a safety car for that. We will wait and see.
If he's stuck, that's a dangerous position to be stuck.
It is. He's called out that he's stuck, so I would be surprised if we don't at least see a virtual safety car here.
Yeah, if we do see a safety car, that's the race is neutralized, and all the little mistakes that everyone's made will
Borghera coming into
be
the pits
somewhat
now from
neutralized.
5th place. Jari Katila from the middle of the pack. Jari Katila's worked his way up and is now in 5th place, so an impressive drive from him. Still no sign of a safety car or a virtual safety car. It looks like he has gotten it free. Notably, just around the corner from him, Zanella managed to get it backwards just before going into the chicane. Dusan Maric ahead of him, still with heavy rear end damage. A lot of cars going around with damage, trying to limp back to the pits. Kind of some sketchy moments for the leaders and the cars, at the front of the mid pack. Trying to navigate all of the carnage and set good laps. Adam, I think this is probably the most challenging and stressful time of the race for the guys who are going around quickly.
Definitely, Lamerto, I saw him lapping lapping some of the back markers very close to them. They were waving about the track a bit. If I were him, I'd be being very careful not to make any, ram into any of the back markers.
Yep. So we'll reset the order really quick now that things appear to have settled down for a moment. Lots of cars coming in the pits as Sean Lee passes a number of back markers in second place to go by the pits. At the top of the order, we have Lamberto a full 10 seconds clear of Lee, Sean Lee running in second place, Emre Khan in third, Muka in fourth, Yari Katila, very impressive performance from him to drive all the way up to fifth place, though I don't know that he's pitted yet. Pabian in sixth, Gaj in seventh, Runacron push up to eighth place. Tepanyak running ninth, and in 10th, Yefin Yakub. Sonoshki, who was running near the front, has managed to recover to 11th place after falling further back. Borgura in 12th, behind him, Akshay, Dusan Maric, and Sudach. Adam, we're about 20% distance, about to complete the 10th lap. This has been exciting so far.
Very action-packed indeed. I've been struggling to keep up, but yeah, P15 about to be lap. P14, Maric, massive rear damage. I wonder if he's had another collision. Might be the same as before. Quite crazy though. Yeah, very hectic. I'm really surprised we haven't seen another safety car here because many incidents.
Same here. Lamberto comes across the start-finish line through the first corner. He has passed Sudach to put him a lap down, and now appears to have a bit of clear air in front of him. Some back markers coming through the corners ahead.
In the pits from third, as we see Gabergur disconnecting. So yeah, quite a few retirements already. Two of them were from people we were expecting to be, competing for the win. Another couple near the rear of the field.
Yep. Lamberto extending his lead on Sean Lee as he comes up on some more back markers. Obviously the class of the field, far away from everyone else. Sean Lee, I don't know that we expected him to do poorly by any stretch, Adam, but he's pretty handy. Didn't start at the front, wasn't on the front row. If I recall correctly, started 6th or 7th, and now putting in a good drive too. He's not quite keeping pace with Lamberto, but he's not falling off too quickly.
Yeah, it's definitely there's drivers in front of him, we've seen them spinning off all over the place, whereas he's kept it clean, he's not been setting lap records, he's a whole second off Lamberto's times, but he's kept it clean, kept it fair, he's kept his tyres in good nick, or relatively good nick, and yeah, just keeping it going.
Okay. While we're talking, we had another retirement. Verzitskas went off and threw in the towel. Sanoski, who pitted earlier, one of our mouse drivers, has gotten the car repaired, now battling for P10 with Yevon Yakub, running line astern, nose to tail through the chicane. He gets a really good exit, uses all of the curb, and looks like he's going to make this pass pretty handily before he goes into the last corner.
Maybe I was wrong about the R4, because it looks like we've had Emre Khan go into the R4, and now Shinochki's on the R4. He's struggling to heat the carcass of the tyres, but the outside edge of the tyres is pretty perfect for Shinochki.
Sanoski had made the pass pretty cleanly when Tepanyak got it wrong coming out of the last corner, and then Tepanyak does him dirty going through the first corner, tried to go side by side, and Sanoski went off. Sanoski very wisely, rather than trying to force the issue, just took off to the pavement runoff and manages to gather it up. But he is now back to where he was half a lap ago, has to do all this work again to get past Yevon Yakub and Sanoski.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some stewards action there. I'm not sure if we do have mid-race stewarding. We may just see some stuff at the end. As again, Sanochki's catching back up with Yefon Yakub. trying to make that pass again.
Another car in the pits. Zanella, very carefully backing the car into the garage. That's awfully polite of him. Appears to be retiring the car. Looking toward the front again. Not much has changed. We've got Lamberto in P1. Lee. Oh.
Again, Sonochki getting the move, and again he's been spun round by the people he's trying to overtake. Jeff and Jakob misjudging the speed he had to take through that corner, and Sonochki again sent out wide. If I were him, I would be fuming at the moment.
Yeah, he will be sick. He's got it all to do again. That's two big offs that are going to do a number on his tires. He would have lost a lot of time going through the dirt and dust in the first corner. A little bit of damage on the left rear of the car, and those rear tires are going to be in really rough shape.
And again, Lamberto, another fastest lap. He's going round at a rate of knots. The gap's now
really
15 seconds to Lee in second.
So before that excitement, I was about to take us through the top. Lamberto, as Adam just said, running out front by a clear margin. Sean Lee behind him. We got Muka running pretty handily up in third, and Yari Katila. I don't know that he has stopped yet. If he has, we didn't see it, but has come up to fourth place from the middle of the pack. Popping behind him, and David Godge next, and then Ronnie Kronpush also putting in a good drive to come up to seventh. So the guys that we expected to do better in qualifying, that appeared they struggled a little bit, that we expected to drive well, they are driving well. Though we had a few of those very experienced drivers retire, the order is kind of the order is starting to sort out the way we expected it might.
Yeah, it looks like the tires are starting to come good again for a lot of these drivers. R3's obviously past their heat peak, and now they're setting their fastest laps. Sean Lee did so last lap, and so did Mucha, so did Lamberto. And yeah,
there's a car off after turn 2. Looks like Wilson has a bunch of damage and is trying to keep the car out of the way. Oh, very, very close moment there. Lamberto came through just as Wilson was trying to decide whether to retire the car or to try to limp it back around. Lamberto's heart has to be in his throat, Adam.
indeed, that was very scary. That's now on iRacing, that's happened to me a few times. Back marker who's just crashed rejoining in front of me, ruining my race. But luckily, Lamberto managed to avoid it there.
Yeah, fortunately for him, quick reaction, and Wilson retired the car just as he came through.
Yeah, Lamberto has been pretty faultless this whole race. He's kept it clean, kept the gaps, kept the lapping round. It's brilliant stuff. So you see Lamberto coming up to that marker, Jeffen Jakob. We saw Jeffen Jakob a couple laps ago caused a bit of an issue with Sonochki, but that was for position. Hopefully he'll just concede the position.
Yeah, since then, Sonochki was able to get through and drive away, so I wonder if Jeffen Jakob had a problem. He dutifully gets out of the way for Lamberto to go through.
Yeah, even still, Lamberto would have lost some time there because this car, there's a lot of aero loss, aero drop when you're behind someone, and he wasn't so speedy in getting out of the way.
He did. He lost awful lot of time through that first split, about a second down on his typical splits through the first sector. So you are right. The downforce makes a huge difference. That cost him a ton of time. Not that it's costing the outlook for his race. He is still a country mile clear of Sean Lee in second place. Speaking of Sean Lee, he now has some clear track coming through the chicane. Nobody ahead of him. If he wants a chance at winning this race or even getting a sniff of the leader, he needs to take this opportunity to put in some very quick laps. Behind him, Muka not too far off. Sean Lee is coming into the slower part of the circuit right now. Muka just now. Sorry, Sean Lee coming out of the slowest part of the circuit right now. Muka just now driving in.
Sean Lee's managed to let his tires heat up quite a bit again. It looks like he's been having trouble with flat spots and locking up into most of these corners. Be interesting to see if he makes a pit stop anytime soon onto some R4s. Maybe he'll be waiting for a safety car.
Behind them, Jari Katila. Jari Katila very quickly and handily navigated a lot of back markers, and he's on a pretty good lap. So he's coming through the final corner now. Still in fourth place. Jari Katila coming into the pits.
As we see, Niemanen's just retired. Interesting that Jari came into the pits there, because you know maybe he's out of fuel. I thought his tires were pretty perfect there.
I'm a little surprised too, because he had just gone through a bunch of back markers. He might have taken the opportunity to set some quick laps, but entirely possible this was planned, and that's as long as his fuel went.
Yeah, that's something we haven't really talked about, the fuel strategy. Because as these cars are so light, any extra fuel is going to cost lap time, but also the less fuel you have in your car, the more pit stops you've got to make.
Jari Katila came out of the pits just ahead of Ronnie Kronpush, and Ronnie Kronpush was able to pass him going into the first corner.
So yeah, both Ronnie Kronpush and Jari Katila have made a pit stop, and Ronnie's of course was much earlier in the race, but he's managed to use that to his advantage and get back ahead.
He has, but notably, Jari came out of the pits he lost the position, so ultimately he's just behind Ronnie Kronpush, but I believe he started further back in the pack. So the two of them running a good race after what was probably a disappointing start for them. With a bit of attrition and some consistent driving, they're doing really well.
Yeah, quite often we do see these two drivers fighting each other. It's that kind of
We've got Muka in the pits now. Looks like he is just leaving his pit box. Had pitted from third place behind Lee. Davigaj is going to go by and take the position. So that'll put Muka down to fifth place, I believe.
I don't believe God just pitted yet, but maybe someone can confirm that for me. Yeah, I don't think he has. So he's like the leaders. He's going long on this set of tires and obviously fueled up quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes around there, because I believe Ronnie Kronpush and Jari Katila are within that pit stop length. You know, if he pits, we're going to see Ronnie and Jari get back through.
I was going to share an interesting fact about Davigaj. He is now our highest running mouse driver in fourth place. So
I don't believe he is. I believe Sean Lee is our highest running mouse driver.
Oh, you're right. I completely missed that. Thank you very much. That's my mistake. Davigaj is the highest running mouse driver in my heart.
Interesting to note that after his pit stop, after leaving the pits just behind Ronnie, Jari Katila has dropped down 4 seconds behind Ronnie Kronpush. So maybe Jari's struggling to get heat in the tires, or he's just not used to the heavy fuel. And Emery Khan has just come up behind him. He's really closed up there. It might be to do with the traffic, but it's crazy. To Pontiac as well.
A lot of cars running close together here.
Might be trying to get this position back on the front straight.
Yeah, Emery Khan is defending. Yari's going to go the hard way around the outside. We'll see if he can make this stick. They're side by side. Yari thinks better of it. Very smart by him, because it's awfully difficult to go through there side by side. We've seen a number of cars make contact through there. Jari realizing there's a lot of time left in this race. Now navigating a back marker while battling for this position.
Oh, that's mental with the back markers there. He's just totally messed with him there.
Yeah, that was
Back
awfully
marker
close.
off into the barrier. Toponiak not having fun.
Behind them, Liberto is coming up behind this battle. So these guys they'll be trying to keep the pace up so that they can battle for position with the cars ahead of them, but they also need to be very mindful of the leaders coming through. On board with Liberto, he's able to come through and get the first back marker coming up on Toponiak now. We'll see how he does with the cars ahead.
Lamerta has been setting mental lap times. He's a whole 2 seconds faster than anyone else in these last few laps. It's crazy stuff going on.
Toponiak not ready to give way just yet. Was crazy late on the brakes.
Lamerta coming into the pits. That's a clever decision as he's coming up on back markers. Obviously coming near to the end of his tires and his fuel. Probably see him going to R4s now, and depending on fuel, he might be going to the end of the race here. Maybe not. He's going for a 2-stop strategy. Still on his R3s.
Roberto's rolling, but Sean Lee is coming by on the front side. Sean Lee's going to take the lead of the race, Adam.
So yeah, it looks like a pit stop is maybe 25, 26 seconds. So keep that in the notes there. Keep that noted as we see. Muka, the number 88, has had an incident coming out of turn 7 and back up to speed. Emre Can is caught right back up to the back of him. As Finko, a back marker, almost wiping him out there. He's not being very compliant there. Lets him through there though.
Behind them, looks like Yari lost that back. He's trying to catch up again. I didn't see what happened. Toponiak ahead of them has come alive. He's awfully late on the brakes coming into the final corner. He's able to use that to gain some time and then get a good run out of the last corner. He's going past Muka easily clears him before turn 1.
And that aero drop has really slowed Muka down. He's already 10, 15 car lengths behind. Really the power of the aero drop there. Toponiak closing in on Emre Can. Again, with all that draft, a beautiful sector 1. Yeah, even in slow corners like these, aero drop will be a factor. You know, he's already a bit of understeer on the exit, meaning he can't get as good an exit.
Yeah, and you can see it pretty clearly. Going into the corner, Toponiak was all over him right under the camera, and then as they're trying to go through the corner and use the downforce, he loses so much time. And again, closes up in the corner, runs a little bit wide without the downforce there. This is an exciting battle. We'll see if Toponiak can get it done. In the slower corners, the aero doesn't matter as much, so if he can get a good exit through the chicane, he might have a shot down into the final corner where he has been awfully quick. Looks like he may not be close enough here. Kind of a bad exit out of the chicane.
Well, but he's got a decent exit there. He might just be within Emre Can's draft range. Maybe not. This will be annoying for him because he is it does look like he's slightly faster at this point in the race, but due to the aero drop, he just can't get anything done.
Behind them, Shinashiki is right on top of Yuri Katila, makes a really late move trying to dive through turn 1. Gets out of it, thinks better of it, but is able to come back on him. Does the crossover and gets past him. Going into turn 2, yeah, really smart by Yari.
With some beautiful racing going on there. Very clean, very... I won't say submissive, but definitely fair.
A lot of respect too. A lot of respect to give him room, and then smart to just not force the issue. We look ahead, we got Toponiak side by side with Emre Can, gets around him on the outside coming out of the chicane.
Getting back with the draft though. Round the outside, this is an interesting move around the outside here. You know, the fastest line is definitely the inside, and yeah.
Yeah, it would be very It would be very difficult for Imicon to make that stick because Teponyak, though he's not as quick as the leaders, he is shown to be awfully good on the brakes, and now he's driving away from Imicon.
Yeah, Ronnie's next up the road for Teponyak. Ronnie's kept the car way out of trouble. It's great to see him up in 5th.
Oh, in the last corner, Muka's gone wide. Shinashiki able to easily take the position without even slowing down, and he will drive away. He's got a gap. It looks like it might put him out of draft range. That also lets Yarrick Dilla gain a little bit of time on Mucha. We'll see what he can capitalize on this and climb toward the front where he was earlier. The excitement's died down a little bit, so we'll reset the order. We still have Sean Lee out front, is yet to take his pit stop. Behind him, Lamerto running in second, still putting in the quickest laps of the race. Pamian behind them, running in third, I believe has not taken a pit stop yet, and that's put him up toward the front of the order. David Gage behind them, and then Ronnie Krunpush from the middle of the pack, putting in a great drive. He's already taken a pit stop, running 5th, so great drive for him. Teponyak behind Ronnie Krunpush, and then Emre in 7th, Sinoshki in 8th, Buka in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, we go Yari Katila, who is gaining time on Mucha. Mucha just coming through the middle of the chicane right now. Yari Katila driving over the curb in the middle of the chicane. Gets a pretty good exit. Comes down to the final corner and is visibly gaining on Mucha. We'll see if he gets a good exit here and is able to carry that down the front stretch through the fast part of the circuit to gather him up. More cars in the pits. Look like back markers. Still no sign of Sean Lee coming to the pits. My mistake, Sean Lee has come into the pits.
Nice quick stop there. Looks like he has chosen not to change his tires. So just some fuel there.
He must be running on R4s then.
I think it might have been the same for Lamerto in the front as well, just a fuel stop. That was a few laps ago though.
And I've been told that they are running on R3s, so he's making R3s work for an entire race distance, apparently.
Well, he will need to make a compound change at the end. But if he can make the R3s last longer, it means he can potentially go into R2s if he's done decent enough practice on them and has found they don't overheat. And yeah, 3rd place, we've got Pibian with his Ferrari skin, beautiful. Kept way out of trouble, put in some consistent times. This is great to see from him.
Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. An exciting moment at the front. Lamerto had a back marker Takavicius spin right in front of him coming into the last corner. Managed to avoid it, and it goes through. My apologies, please continue.
Yeah, Pabian kept it very clean, out of trouble, avoided all the back markers. His car is in perfect condition. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up at the end of this race, because it's been a pretty good masterclass from him.
He's also run a really good pace. His best lap is a 27.88. He's just put in a 28 dead. So stayed out of trouble, kind of running a quiet race, but also running a quiet and quick race. So well done to him.
Yeah, I mean, Ronnie Krampus as well has run a brilliantly clean, out of trouble race there. Bit of a different pit stop strategy though. I believe Pabian hasn't pitted yet. But Ronnie has. Be interesting to see how they both end up at the end of this. But yeah, behind Roney to Pontiac on our screens. A few laps ago, I mean the gap hasn't come down a huge amount, but in the last few laps maybe gained a second or two. Gap's about 3 seconds.
Yeah, Pontiac has Ronnie visible now, just a corner ahead. It looked like Ronnie Krampusch got the chicane a little bit wrong. Pontiac using a lot of the curb, awfully quick out of there. He's visibly gaining now. His best lap also awfully quick in the 26s, so he's capable. He got into a little bit of trouble earlier, but is obviously capable, and now actually now doing the work, putting in quick laps.
Sonocci right behind Emre Can for 7th position. Looks like he's making a move into turn 13, round the outside on the brakes. Left a massive gap on the inside though. Gives him a good exit, but Emre Can's going to be with a little wiggle, but he's still going to have the slipstream all the way down the back, all the way down the front straight. It's going to get him into turn 1.
Oh, Sonocci tried to force it and ended up going wide on account of that.
Yeah, Sonocci not ready for the aero drop.
Behind them, Pabian came into the pits and is now on his way out. Yarrick Attila is about to go by. Pabian manages to get him just before turn 1. Gaj also gained a place ahead of them, going ahead of Pabian.
Pabian must have pitted for tyres and fuel, and yeah, he's onto R4s. Because that was a long stop, so we may see Pabian going to the end here on a one stop, which is interesting.
It's working pretty well for him. He is still in the top 10 on account of running very long and just staying out of trouble. So a good drive for him, even if he didn't have ultimate pace. He's been consistent and he's making the strategy work for a pretty impressive drive.
In front of Pabian there, Yarrick Attila's front left is boiling hot. Obviously a bit of issue with lockups. And yeah, slow into that corner there. As we've got a car into the gravel, got a virtual safety car. That's number 7. He's in last place, so we've got a back marker in the gravel. So yeah, pace has been neutralized. Everyone going around at 140 kilometers an hour.
So interestingly, the timing of this virtual safety car is very good for Sonocci and Emre Can. Sonocci has gotten right on Emre Can's tail again and was ready to execute a pass, and is now driving around behind him at virtual safety car pace, ready to jump when they come back to green. We got the car out of the gravel, recovered by the safety car, so we should be going green any moment. There's the green notification. Yeah, so Davigach got it wrong, and Pabian was able to get by him, and now has Yarrick Attila all over the rear of his car, coming through the most difficult part of the circuit to follow another car. Yeah, the downforce obviously not working.
It's interesting, Yari, the outside of his tires are stone cold, but the inside, well, they were boiling hot, but they've, due to the virtual safety cars, had a chance to cool it down. So obviously, lacking a bit of tyre management there. In front of him, God just weaving around on the straight, trying to get heat back into his worn old tyres. Interesting to see Pabian might have had an issue. We might be seeing him with a penalty or not, because he may have overtaken someone during the virtual safety car. We'll wait for confirmation on that.
Pontiac had come into the pits a few moments ago and is now moving down pit lane for the exit. Liberto able to.
Yari's past Godge, and they all get past Topniak.
Yep, and
As
ahead
you've
of all of
got
that. Sorry, go
Talcus
ahead.
in the background is round after the last turn. He's into the pits, P12.
In that excitement with the shuffle of the order and Toponiak in the pits, Liberto was able to weave his way through all of the back markers and now has clear again. He's had a few exciting moments, but running a nearly perfect race, and now he's got clean air to try to drive away again.
You see
Roddy?
Sean Lee's coming up to the back of the battle for 8th, I believe. Be interesting to see how he deals with these back markers. Topaniak's going to give him a lot of aero drop. Manages to get out of the way. A bit close there though. As Ronnie Krumpus is in the pits.
And another car in the pits behind him, that is Sanochki coming into the pits.
So, two drivers battling precision have gone into the pits at the same time. Be interesting to see what they do in their stops. Looks like Kronpus is changing his tires, and so is Sanochki. Ronnie's staying on R3s, but Sanochki's gone to R4s.
Oh, sorry,
what...
Adam. There was a big accident right ahead of Ember Khan. A couple cars collected each other and went off. Looks like it was Vicious and Sudash. A couple back markers got together, but it happened right in front of Ember Khan, who had just claimed 3rd place with the cycle of pit stops. Managed to avoid that. These two cars are going again.
One thing to note is that Ronnie Krumpus pitted for tires, but he stayed on R3s. That means he'll have to pit again because he hasn't changed his compound. So this means that he has to do a 3-stop strategy, which will be interesting because, you know, it really looked to me like he had could have got by with only 2 stops, but maybe it's a fuel issue. Behind Pabian, letting through Sean Lee. And Sean coming up to lap Yari as well. Yari getting it perfect there, giving him a lot of draft. A nice helping hand.
Behind them, the friendly combination of Toponiak and Sanochki resumes. Oh, Sanochki gets it all wrong. Looked like he locked up the rear brakes and slid badly wide. Now Toponiak on top of him, coming down the front stretch. Toponiak should have the slipstream. Sanochki weaving to defend. Toponiak probably doesn't have enough here to get by him, and he'll follow him into turn 1. Yeah, Toponiak. Sorry, Toponiak nearly lost it coming through the corners there. He caught Sakoshki but wasn't able to make the pass going into turn 1, and then looked like he got it wrong in the middle of the corner or lost the downforce. Lost an awful lot of time. It is now not under his wing like he was just a few moments ago. But ahead of that, Sanochki catching up to Pabian. Pabian was further ahead and has fallen back a little bit into the clutches of Sanochki, who gets a good run out of the chicane. Pabian not as good. He should be able to catch him coming into the corner here. While all this was happening, we lost Sudach, another retirement. Now we got 16 cars running around from the 26 that started. On board with Shanash now. Right on Pabian's tail as they avoided a back marker that had gone off track. Pabian off in the grass, Sanochki off in the grass as well. That's going to let Toponiak run by both of them. Passing them on the outside is going to have them going into the final corner while Pabian defends. Sanochki stuck on the outside, manages to complete the pass, cut down to the apex, and put Pabian down. Pabian loses 2 positions in the span of a lap, while Toponiak is able to capitalize and go by.
So during that, you may have seen on the side of your screen, last place driver, the 46 of Taukus, was in the gravel, but he's recovered. As Toponiak in front's gone off, He's managed to keep it fairly straight, but again,
Yeah,
lost the two positions he's gained the lap before.
Yeah, he did all of that work and then lost it again in the same place where he nearly lost it on the previous lap, and it looks like he's got a bit of damage now. So that may be, yeah, front left is bent. The front wing also losing downforce as Pabian struggles in front of him. Pabian caught up a lot in that corner, so.
And yeah, the driver we saw off just a minute ago, Tautkas, has retired. Lost a lot of drivers from this race. We're down to 15.
Yeah, we're having a
down
few
from
in
28
quick
down to
succession.
15. 13 cars we've lost.
Spaniak's limping this car back, not losing a lot of time. I wonder if Pabian has a problem too, because Sanowski has driven away from him, and Stepaniak, though the car is pretty badly damaged, is not losing Pabian at all. He's kept the gap pretty steady. Stepaniak brings the car in the pits. This should be a longer stop because he'll have a bit of damage to repair.
You know, I may be wrong about Roney's strategy here, because if you remember, he pitted very early on in the race, which is quite unusual, but he may have started on R2s.
You're right. I'd forgotten that. He pitted at the end of the first lap.
Which could mean he could go to the end on these tires. It would be a challenge. You know, the R3s don't last forever, but you know, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, among the drivers in the field that do it, he is one of them. Looking to the front again, Lamerto coming into the final corner, brings it down to the apex, has a back marker ahead of him. He's coming around with 20 laps to go. We will follow him on board and just let you watch and enjoy it for a few moments. All right, back with you. That was a mostly clean lap with just a couple back markers from Alexi Lamerto. A blistering race lap, 25.70. We picked a good one for you to watch. Not his quickest, but still awfully quick while navigating some back markers. We lost a couple cars and a couple more retirements while we were watching that onboard lap.
As behind all of that, we've got Jari Katila making a move on Ronnie Krampus. And again, you can see the effect of the aero drop. That's crazy. He's lost half a second just being under his rear wing there through this first sector. And yeah, with Yari's strategy and with the Ronnie strategy, they've been competing for the same positions, but they've been, you know, quite far away from each other on track. It's interesting how this different strategy plays out during this whole race. As you said, Ronnie might not need to pit again, but neither Jari. I believe Jari. Actually, he's still on R3s. He may need to pit again. One thing to note is Emre Can in front, I was just about to mention him because he went into the pits, but he's just spun ahead of those two.
An interesting coincidence. I had just picked up Sean Lee to see how he was doing and watched Emre Khan spin right in front of him. Lee managed to avoid it.
Yeah, Emre Khan was running in third, pitted and came out behind Mucha. And again, has lost more time to him.
He may have gotten a bit of damage. It looks like the car, it's hard to see with the black wing over the dark part with all the tire marks on the circuit, but it looks like the front wing might be bent a little bit, so he may have gotten into the fence or hit a tire or something, and he's losing a lot of time to Sean Lee, who went through to put him a lap down.
Yeah, it does look like he has quite a bit of damage on that right rear. But interesting to see if Jari Katila and Ronnie Krumpus try and negate that gap they've got to him.
Ahead of that, Sean Lee, going around very quickly, is about to go past third place to put him a lap down. Lamberto obviously having already gone through some time ago. And we now have 2 cars on the lead lap, 14 running. We will soon have 2 cars on the lead lap. I misspoke, my mistake. Mucha navigates a back marker. Lee will catch this back marker on the front stretch and then should be able to get by Mucha to be the sole remaining car on the lead lap after the leader, Alexi Lamberto.
Yeah, Sean Lee just set his fastest lap of the race there. Almost the same as Lamberto's in front. Someone who was a couple seconds off the times in quali has managed to really, you know, Sean Lee is really keeping up with Lamberto here. As we've Emre Khan, who is fighting for third, has timed out. He's lost connection. So that means we've lost more than half of the drivers in this race. I think that's what we've got. 13 out of 28. So 15 people have retired from this race. Quite a big death count.
We had a couple drivers we expected to do well that got caught up in the events of the first few laps, as often happens. But I believe Emre Khan is the highest running retirement during the course of the race. That puts Mucha, who's had a relatively quiet race, up into third. Jari Katila into fourth. Ronnie Kronbusch running fifth.
As you're talking about Mucha, Lee does get past him just then to make it only 2 cars on the lead lap. That's quite yeah, that's not often something we say on LFS. Quite often it's very close at the front, but interesting to see the race has gone this way.
This is a clinic by the leaders. A lot of drivers running strong and consistent pace, but Alexi Lamberto and Sean Lee, the class of the field, driving away from everyone.
And yeah, behind those guys in 5th and 6th and 4th, it's really bunching up a bit. Jari Katila is being caught by Ronnie Krumpus again, and Sunochki is catching Ronnie. So in a few laps' time, we might be seeing 3-way battle for 4th place.
Coming up on... Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, out of all of them, Jari Katila set the fastest split time though, so might see him getting away again. His tyres are awfully thin, whereas behind him, Ronnie's are well, they're boiling hot. So it looks like in a couple corners time we might see Sunochki in the draft of Ronnie. He's already gained about half a second this lap.
Sunochki is so good on the brake, especially into that corner. He uses all of the road at the absolute limit of traction. We can see that he's visibly gained a lot of time through the braking zone, and now a really good exit through the chicane. He, if he can get it right through this corner, he should have a run on Ronnie Kronbusch down the front stretch. Looked like Ronnie went a bit wide, so Sunochki might have him here.
As in front of them, we got Sean Lee in the pits. I wonder why, because he didn't pit too long ago. Looks like he's switching on to R4s.
Well, he and Alex Lamerto have such a gap on the rest of the field that it's entirely possible he's just shorted fuel earlier so that he can run quickly, do fast laps toward the finish. Interestingly, he wasn't that far behind Lamerto in the lead. Maybe he didn't have enough fuel.
Yeah, I'm not sure. To me, it looked like it was just a stop for tires. I mean, fuel could have played a factor, but it's interesting that he didn't take those tires at the earlier stop.
Yep. So looking back from Sean Lee, Sanoshki was all over Ronnie Kronpusch coming out of the fast chicane. Now coming into the slow part of the circuit. Didn't get a very good exit out of turn 5 for 5, 6, and 7, but is so good in the slow corners and is now right on Ronnie Kronpusch again. Ronnie gets a good exit though. Is able to keep Sanoshki behind them. We'll see what Sanoshki can do on the brakes coming into the final corner.
Sanoshki has got perfect exit onto Ronnie's rear here down the front straight. Going to be quite an easy move on the inside. Ronnie just lets it happen as he should. Very sensible racing there. I think Ronnie will just watch Sanoshki go off into the distance. Possibly.
Yeah, you can see the effect of the aero wash there. He ran wide on the curb. Managed to gather it up though. He's not fallen as far back as other drivers have once they get into the dirty air.
Yeah, I think if you are cautious under the aero drop and you do let people by easier, then you don't have to worry about it so much. I think Ronnie will be hoping that Sanoshki catches up with Jari and they have a little bit of a battle. Although Yari's...
Sorry, Adam, to interrupt.
Lamerto
coming into the pits. Sean Lee did just one lap ago, and now Alexi Lamerto stops in his box.
He missed his pit box there. He had to drive forward a bit, so that's going to cost him a few seconds. He was about 8 seconds up the road from Sean Lee, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But
quite a bit further than that, actually. Sean Lee just coming through the final chicane now, so Lamerto should be able to get away with a big gap. Lamerto coming out. Sean Lee just coming through the final corner now. So a big gap there.
That Lamerto's come out behind Ronnie, Sanoshki, and Jari. If he gets back onto the pace quickly, that's going to mess up that battle a bit, ruffle it up. Interesting to see what will happen there.
Well, it could also play to Sean Lee as well, because Lamerto will need to carefully navigate these back markers. He knows he's got a gap, but the cars ahead are racing him. So this may help Sean Lee. Maybe Lamerto plays it a little bit cautiously. And then, of course, anything could happen. Sean Lee's far back, but I dare say he's in the catbird seat to capitalize if something exciting happens ahead of him with the leader, Lamerto. Well, things have settled down for the moment. We've passed 1 hour of racing, about 3/4 distance. Lamerto will come across in just a few moments to finish his 42nd lap. That will have 11 laps remaining. We'll reset the order here. We have Alexi Lamerto in the lead, clear of Sean Lee by a significant portion of a lap. Again, Sean Lee in second place. Mucha in third, a respectable drive. Sorry, we had a car coming in the pits while I was reviewing the order. Musha in the pits from third. And that let Jari Katila go by. That puts Mucha back to sixth.
Interesting.
So Jari Katila up to third, Sanoshki in fourth, and then Ronnie Kronpusch back up to fifth. Mucha in sixth. Pabian, who is running a respectable race, able to get by Mucha just as he came out of the pits, just snatched the position there. They nearly collected. Mucha managed to get out of the way, with David Gaj now coming behind him for the battle for 7th and 8th place.
Quite a fun little note here is that oh, for 3rd place there, Shinochki up the inside of Yari Katila.
Yari's not going to give up easily. He's all over him coming through the chicane. Oh, gets that corner a little bit wrong, so I don't know that he'll have a run here.
Yeah, Shinochki got that done in a perfect place because Yari had to deal with the aero drop and ruined any chance of him getting back past him on this next straight.
And that happened because Shinochki has been so good on the brakes there.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Daniel Ricciardo as Yari dives into the pits. I thought he would need to pit again, and indeed he has pitted again. Yari is going on to R2s. That's an... I wonder if he's going for pulling a bit of a fastest lap job. I doubt he'll have the pace for that, but interesting how he's gone to R2s instead of going safely onto R4s, because R2s will heat up very quickly and he will struggle with them.
Out ahead of that, Sean Lee weaving a little bit, trying to get heat into the tires, running on R4s and struggling a little bit to find the grip.
So Yari Katila has gone from 3rd to 9th during that pit stop phase. He's back behind Jeff and Jacob onto R2s. This, again, I keep saying R2s, but that's a big, I believe that's a big mistake from him.
Oh, at the front, Alexi Lamerto has come up on Ronnie Cronpush to try to put him a lap down, and Ronnie is not getting out of the way. Lamerto's had to follow him through a few slow corners. The aero wash, the dirty air, working to his disadvantage. He wasn't able to stay close coming out of the final chicane. Now on the brakes into the final corner. We'll see if he can get a run, and if Ronnie will move over and let him through.
Ronnie Cronpush's tires are still boiling hot. He's managed to kind of deal with it so far, but if he was a bit more careful, he'd be much faster already. He's struggling with those tires.
Yeah, and Lamerto's had to back off a little bit. He's not able to follow because of the aerodynamic effect. And Ronnie's not moving. His split times are much slower than they have been. He's about a second off his pace. Meanwhile, Sean Lee catching them up.
Ronnie finally decides to jump out of the way there. I'm not sure if Ronnie really got that he was slowing down Lamerto so much with that aero drop. Luckily, Sean Lee only gained about a second on him there, second or two.
Yeah, that compromised Lamerto's line out of the corner. Ronnie's going to try to take the position back. Well, though it's not a position, he's just trying to get his line back. He thinks better of it, gets on the brakes, now following Lamerto around. A little bit rude by Ronnie, but good on him for choosing to stay behind instead of making a pass there.
During that mess, Ronnie's lost 2 or 3 seconds to Sinechki. This is not something you would expect from a driver with such experience.
No, I'm a bit surprised, honestly. We'll see. We'll see if perhaps there's something we don't know after the race. We'll gather some more information.
Hopefully by dissing him there, I am saving him from the commentator's curse.
Is that our excuse? We roast the drivers going around to subtly motivate them.
Yeah. I mean, even though they probably can't hear us,
we'll see how they feel about that when we do our debrief.
Oh, and behind them, Mucha and Pabian battling for 5th position. Too wide at the first corner. Looks like Pabian will just take that, and yeah, Mucha concedes.
Yep. Pabian defended that pretty aggressively.
And behind them,
let David Godge catch up to them.
Oh, the big air drop that Mucho got there. That's given Godge a run.
Yeah, Mucha lost the rear of the car, barely gathered it up on the curb, almost lost it, and went flying off the circuit.
Yeah.
Right, on board with Godge's Mucha on his right.
The aero drop in these 3-man battles is really mixing things up.
Yep, Mucha went side by side just as we went on board with David Gotch, and Mucha's all over him.
But again, the aero drop has ruined his exit, and he's doesn't have a chance to get his position.
No, Mucha was all over him, and you're right. The aero effect is so pronounced, and it happens so quickly. It went from side by side to just utterly incapable of following it through the chicane.
This is all helping Jacob Jeffin catch up to the back of those three drivers. As a bit of info here, Pabian, his gearing is very interesting here. He's short shifting. He's using 4th out of the final corner. Normally we would have thought 2nd or 3rd, but he's using 4th.
Do you suppose he's trying to save fuel, or is he trying to save the rear tires? Because even with traction control on at full power, it's easy to lose the grip on the rear tires, and that can so quickly boil them off.
It looks to me that Pabian's tires are in good condition, so it must be a fuel thing. Interesting to note, though, that his top speed is still much faster than Godge's down that back straight, so I believe he's running lower wing.
Oh, he gets a really good run over the groups there. Yeah. Godge got it a bit wide. Oh, Mucha had a great run and then just got the rear of the car out of sorts coming out of the last part of the chicane and isn't able to make it happen coming down the straight.
He did that again. He had a chance to make the same move the last lap and went wide due to aero drop, and he didn't learn for the second time around. Hopefully it won't happen a third time. Maybe a third time lucky. He is closer out of turn 12 there. Got onto the grass a bit though.
What is clear, though he's just not able to catch up and make a move here. He is trying awfully hard.
This is really slowing those three down. Jacob Jeffin, 2 laps ago he was 7 seconds behind. Last lap he was 5 seconds behind. And I think the gap's down to around 3 seconds now. If he keeps this up and if they keep it up in front of him, he's going to be right onto this battle.
We'll quickly look away from that battle. Please interrupt me if something exciting happens to look at Alex Lamerto out front. He struggled a couple laps ago to get by Ronnie Grompush, but has now put several seconds on him, has a comfortable gap behind, is coming up on one more back marker. Otherwise, comfortably leading the race.
Mucha up the inside of Godge into turn 5. Finally through, but it looks like he's going to have trouble in front again with Pabian. Godge fighting back though, much faster on the straight than Mucha. I'm wondering if Mucha's running very high wing, or maybe just had a bad exit. Weaving
Godge
about
all over
to
him.
block Godge.
This has let Jeffen Jakob catch up. Jeffen Jakob now in the picture with these 3 drivers battling. Pabian staying just ahead of these guys, running consistent laps and trying to be as smooth as possible while the 2 behind him battle, but all the while letting Jeffen Jakob catch up.
I'm sorry, I've just checked Godge's tyres. If I were him, I would be incredibly worried because his tyres are stone cold and his front left is as thin as a piece of paper. It's crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if either Godge jumps in for a pit stop or goes and gets a puncture.
Yeah, on board with Jakob now. Just watching the battle unfold ahead of him. We'll see if he can make up this gap. Mucha getting really close to Pabian ahead of him, and he's gone through. Jakob going awfully quick through the chicane, far faster than the cars ahead of him. He'll have a good run here. The next lap, Godge has a run ahead of him, but Jeffen Jakob tailing them. Oh, Godge just touched the grass, got up the inside. Pabian thought better of it, let Godge through.
And Godge, as I was saying, just got a puncture. Oh. Pabian has had an issue as well. This is crazy. Yeah, everyone's off.
Yeah, the puncture, Gudge's puncture, caught everyone out, and then Jeff and Jakob punted the car ahead of him, and they all three went off.
I said the lap before that they had to watch out, and
yeah, that was a great call. You were absolutely right.
Gudge nursing it round. Yep. Topignac, what's up with his gears?
Yeah, Topignac had a good run on Jari Kitila coming out of the corner, and then, as Adam called, got the gears wrong, and now Jeff and Jakob right behind Topignac. Oh, sorry, that's Finko. Similar colors, wrong driver. That's a back marker. My mistake. Topignac managed to gather it up after getting the gears wrong. Is now all over Jari Kitila again, coming through the fastest part of the circuit.
But can't get close because of the airdrop. It's running wide, washing wide. But as I was saying earlier, those R2s, a bad decision, and indeed, he's sliding all over the place, and he's round. Topignac and Finko having to make a void in action.
He's just rolled out of the way. Topignac barely managed to avoid it. Finko just clipped his front wing. Jari, the prevailing wisdom when you spin is to hold your brakes. There, the 1 out of 100 situation where it would have been better had he not held the brakes, but everybody manages to avoid. Cost Jari a lot of time, and those tires are going to be really hot now.
It's like driving on super hot ice, and he's round again. This is...
Yeah, he's lost it again.
As we
on the front stretch, though.
Jacob Jeffen making a move on Pabian. Doesn't have the right overspeed, but Pabian gives him the place. Obviously, Pabian's nursing the car home with only the 4 laps left that there is.
A lot of respect from Pabian there to let him go when they were about to go in side by side.
Krumpus, if only a few laps before, Jari was behind, just behind Krumpus. Krumpus comes by to lap Jari Kitila.
Yeah, this was
Crazy
a good
stuff.
battle earlier, and that was a good battle earlier, and then they spread out and now together again, but for all the wrong reasons for Jari.
Well, what originally was looking like it was going to be a pretty naff result for Race Green, they've got 2 drivers well inside the top 10. I think the only team with 2 drivers still remaining in this race. Crazy stuff. The rate of attrition here has been really quite high.
It has. And one of the interesting stories of this race is the tire situation. We've got drivers going very long on tires, trying to make them last, and then having punctures as Lee goes through around Davigaj. I was about to say that Davigaj is trying his best to put heat in these tires, weaving all over the track, trying to get any amount of grip out of them.
I mean, we were looking at Jari Kitila's tires, and he was close to a pop, and indeed he did puncture his tires. Ronnie Krumpus, Ronnie Krumpus has got his right rear is looking incredibly thin, so he'll be nursing it at home. He has a very, very large gap behind him, so he doesn't have to worry, but he will be taking it easy for the next couple laps.
While we were talking about that, Topignac went flying by Pabian and has just disappeared. Pabian obviously struggling, very slow through the chicane. I can't see if he has any damage, but he is off the pace, and Topignac is just driving off into the distance. This has gone from bad to worse for Jari Kitila. Jeffen has now gone past him to put him a lap behind. They were racing for position not 5 minutes ago. Now Jari's struggling pretty badly, and Jeffen driving away from him. Lamberto coming around into the slow part of the circuit. The right-hander under the bridge This will be his. He's coming around to end his penultimate lap, and we'll start the final lap. No cars in sight. One back marker a few seconds up the road, and he should be able to handle pretty easily. Coming around the final corner to start his final lap. We'll watch him on board to conclude the race.
Yeah, really a BF1 masterclass from him. Leading from start to finish. Beautiful quali lap. It's really properly good racing from him. Well impressed.
And even in the late stages of the race, still running awfully fast laps. His best was a 25 dead. Not too far off, less than the second off his qualifying lap. He's running 26s in race pace, easily passing the back markers. Had a few exciting moments, avoiding cars spinning in front of him or collecting one another. But as you said, a masterclass, a total clinic on driving the BF1. Behind him, not too far behind him actually, Sean Lee also putting on an impressive show in the BF1. He's coming out of the chicane, the fast chicane right now, onto the backstretch. A good drive from him in second place.
Yeah, in this last kind of quarter of the race, Sean Lee's times have been perfect. They've been really rivaling Lamerta. Shame he wasn't the same as the start.
That's true. As Lamerta comes around the final corner, drives it out wide, lapped the third place car of Sinoshki, so Sinoshki will come across a lap down to third place. Alexi Lamerta crosses the finish line, led from pole position for most of the race, only gave up the lead for a few laps to Sean Lee during a cycle of pit stops. A dominating performance by Alexi Lamerta. Sean Lee will come across for second place. Sinoshki will have third by virtue of having crossed the line a lap down behind Lamerta. Adam, that was really, really impressive from Alexi Lamerta.
Indeed. Commanding win. And just as impressive from Sean Lee, I think. Doing that on a mouse. Crazy.
Also impressive. The results are still coming in, but we've got fourth place Ronnie Kronpush from the middle of the pack with a fair bit of excitement during the race. Manages to drive from the middle all the way up to fourth place. Only one lap off. Pretty good race pace.
I was talking about him at the end of qualifying. I said his time was a bit off, and indeed he's again a tire-saving masterclass.
It is.
His tire, his rear right is incredibly thin, but he's done it to perfection now.
He has. Now more results coming in behind Ronnie Kronpush in fourth. We've got Mucha with an impressive drive, a little bit of excitement toward the end, but manages to gather it up and finish fifth. Yefin with a very impressive drive up to fifth. Teponyak had a very exciting race, managed to gather it up and get it under control to finish seventh. Pabian, a relatively quiet race until he got caught up in the excitement toward the end in eighth. David Godge, ninth. Yari Katila, he has to be sick. He was driving such a great race, drove close to the front. I believe he was up to fourth at one point, and then it all went wrong from him. Caught up with a few other cars and a puncture, had to do a late stop, finishes 10th. Then Muru in 11th, Gulfiri 12th, and Finko in 13th, rounding out the order. Everyone else having retired. 13 finishers, 15 retirements? 13 retirements, Adam.
Yeah, 15 retirements. We started with 28. Again, rate of attrition is crazy.
And yeah, there we have it.
We had some of the top contenders for the win retiring right at the start. Gabor Giur, Pedro Picanco all went round and retired. Interesting. Be wondering if we'll see them competing for race wins later on in the season. We should be.
I believe we will. We've got the top three finishers, the podium finishers, now at the finish line. In the middle, we have the winner, Alexi Lamerta, on his right, camera right. Sorry, on Lamerto's left, camera right. Sean Lee in a very impressive drive in second, just not quite enough to catch Lamerta. And then rounding out the podium, Sinoshki in third place. Adam, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
It was indeed. Barely had a second to catch my breath that whole race. Calmed down a bit towards the end, but you know, that first half was full of action.
It was. That was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I hope our drivers really enjoyed that. They put on a great show for us. Our apologies for the subtle roasting in the middle. We'll let that go now. I'm going to claim that we motivated Sean Lee to pick up the pace a little bit, and he put on a great show for us.
Next round, I believe we've got the well, of course we've got the BF1 at Kyoto GP Long. It's the first Grand Prix of Japan. We've got two of them in this whole season. It's Sunday the 13th of December, the day after the MRC E-Challenge. So back-to-back MRC events here on Sim Broadcasts TV.
All right, we're going to take a break for just a moment to see if we have any drivers who want to participate in interviews. We will organize with them. We'll be back in just a moment. We are back here, simbroadcasts.tv. No interviews today, so we'll do a quick race recap. Alexis Lamerto winning the race from pole position, held the lead for most of it with just a brief respite from running at the front in the middle of the race, ahead of Sean Lee, and then Snoski in third, Ronnie Krampusch in fourth, Mucha fifth, Jakob Jeffen in sixth, Ponyak seventh, Pabi in eighth, David Gotch in ninth, Yari Katila in 10th, Muru 11th, 12th, Galfieri, 13th, Finko with 15 retirements. One more reminder. On the 12th of December, we will have the MRCE Challenge. That is a Saturday. That is an FOX race meant to simulate an E-Prix. Drivers will go around with a limited fuel load on a custom layout created by MRC Michael, one of the members of the Master Race Car team. This custom track will be based on the New York E-Prix track, so that should be a fun event. The day before, the next MRC BF1 League event, the Grand Prix of Japan, the first Grand Prix of Japan at the Kyoto Grand Prix Circuit, KY3, that coming to you on Sunday, December 13th at the same time, 1500 hours UTC. Adam, round it out for us.
Also to note, on Tuesday, we've got the finale of the Team Rock Racing 2020 Championship. I believe I'll probably be taking part in that. Another F1 race, so we're full of F1. It's coming from Kyoto as well, so decent practice for these drivers. Although it's a slightly different layout, KY32. It's a custom layout. Instead of going the right way around the oval, or technically the wrong way around the oval. We go the right way around the oval, and we take a couple of hairpins instead.
All right. Thanks for that recap, Adam. Please tune into those events. We're really happy to have you here. We're excited that you're joining us, and we hope you're enjoying our coverage and the racing you see here. On behalf of the SimBroadcasts.tv team, I'm Travis Mehlinger with Adam Brown. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to the Master Race Car team for putting on this event. This first event was a lot of fun. They did an excellent job. Thank you to the drivers. Thank you to all our viewers once again. We hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, and goodbye.
Goodbye.